Soros Justice Soros Justice Fellowship. I did the media track, there's the advocacy track. So all of us are doing this work, either still doing it, working on projects, starting projects, and so we just want to hear from you. So what we'll do is I'll just ask you to start with a few questions, and then we're going to just kind of open it up to like a dialogue with these people. So just thank you so much for taking your time out. Let's give them a hand for coming out. So you've been pretty busy. You just got back from Essence Festival, right?
Yes.
And so I think the question most people have asked me to ask you is just how is your life right now? Like, how is this affecting your life?
So in a positive way, and everybody, the person in the furthest part of the room, can you hear me?
Over here.
Okay, great. So in a very positive way, I think that, let me just start by saying I've been speaking publicly for over 20 years. And, when I came home from prison, I came out and I was like, okay, well, how can I own my story? There was over 400 articles written about us when this first happened. So that tsunami of media reports really did a devastating job in much ways. As you see, tsunamis hit, countries or land and stuff like that, total devastation. And they were painting this picture about who we were, right? And so the pointing of the finger caused everybody who had an opinion, especially a person like Donald Trump, to say, let me take out a full-page ad in New York City's newspapers. Let me put my money where my mouth is. These folks need to be executed. And therefore, a bounty was placed on our head. I should have brought my other bag with me. I would have shared to show you this actual photo of a letter. This is a letter that I always share with people. And I share this letter in particular because I want people to know the depth of what they did, right? This wasn't just, here it is. This wasn't just so-called business as usual. It was, but on a higher level, this was the so-called criminal justice system. In reality, it was the criminal system of injustice. And so, like, as we began to peel back the layers, as we began to peel back the layers, they inserted me and the rest of the five into this horrific experience that I've often called, we wanted the American dream. But as El Hajj Malik Shabazz, Dr. Malcolm X said, we woke up to the American nightmare, right? This letter right here, and I share this letter because this letter is the only letter that I received that talked about time. And it talked about it in such a really powerful way that they tried to make me go high. They tried to make me duck for cover. They tried to make me run for my life. This letter was written on the 25th day of April of 1989. This so-called crime happened on April 19th of 1989. They had already published our phone numbers, our names, and our addresses in New York City's newspapers. And really, it was like almost a whisper to the people with the most depraved and sickest minds that I need y'all to go and do to them what y'all had done to Emmett Till. Right? So this letter says, to Yusef Salaam, this letter is to let you know that your name has been placed on the list of enemies of society by the Citizens Army, New York City branch. You made a decision when you became one of the pack that decided that Central Park was your arena and decided to attack and violate honest citizens who happened to be in the park. So just remember, now this is the part that's the meat of it, right? Just remember that even 20 to 30 years from now, some people will never forget. And maybe the one time that you don't check your back is the one time that somebody might just be there to say hello. Wow. So, in a powerful way, when I was in prison, the letters that we would write back out to the world would start with, may this letter reach you mentally, spiritually, and physically okay. That was something that we kind of I don't know if all the inmates kind of agreed or had that same kind of conversation. Somebody shaking their head, brother, no. My brother right there knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I get up to the adult facility, and first of all, when I say youth facility, adult facility, I was in a maximum aid security facility for young people. This was supposed to be the worst of the worst. I was in there with a guy who he and his crew, they murdered the husband, raped the women, and put the baby in the oven. I was in a youth facility with people of that caliber, right? And so when I say youth facility, I don't want folks to get it confused and say, oh, this was easy. This was like, boot camp. This was cool.
Yeah.
This was, I was in a place like that. But the worst thing that can happen to you in the youth facility is that you can get beat up. That was the worst. You get hit in the head with a bar of soap. Matter of fact, if you was in a game room, you might get hit in the head with a pool ball. That was the worst that could happen to you. In the adult facility, one of the first experiences that I saw was hearing about a young man losing his life because he had gotten caught up in the whole prison industrial complex. This young man had 1 to 3 years to do. Another young man locked in his cell, somebody walked by, threw some kind of concoction on him. And because people could smoke in the facility, then they set that man on fire. This person had to be airlifted to a hospital. I don't know if this person ever survived. I was in there when Tupac was there. I was in the same area that Tupac was in. I remember Tupac saying, yo man, listen everybody, can y'all just, I love y'all my people. Right? That's what he said. I was like, wow, this is Pac, you know what I'm saying? Like I need one of them internal camera phones that people be seeing. This is dope, right? And I was like, oh snap. Pac got on the gate and was like, yo, I'm just trying to do my bid like everybody else. People were sending him magazines, yo, sign this for me. I want to send it to my loved ones. I mean, it was important for the culture for them to be able to embrace him in that way inside the belly of the beast, right? And I met a gentleman. I'm walking around the yard, and I met a guy who told me to come with him. And anytime somebody says that to you, if you don't have like experience, you try to poke out your chest. Yeah, you okay, all right. In your mind, you're like, oh shucks, they're about to kill me, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what's gonna happen. Unbeknownst to me, and I don't know if that young man is here that we met yesterday. The young man who was saying he was in Chicago as well, and the gangs protected him when he was in the jail. Right. I get in the jail. And before I get there, before they were trying to figure out where they were going to send me throughout the state, my mother was cool. I had never seen my mother that cool about me going to any place in prison. This was like, I was confused. I was like, what's going on? My mother had already known that they were going to send me to the worst place. My mother had already been told that the prison was cool and safe, right? And I say that because they sent me to the absolute worst prison that they could have sent me to. They sent me to Clinton Correctional Facility. That same place that they made that movie about, where the guys escaped, they sent me to that place. And I'm walking around the yard, guy comes up to me, tells me to come with him. I poke out my chest like that's right, yeah, can't see the hedge of God around me, you know what I'm saying? I was trying to, I was fronting. They brought me over to a corner, and this guy was, I used to say this guy was beating up a bag, but this guy was assaulting his bag. I felt bad for the bag. I mean, every time he hit the bag ripped, and his hand would bleed. And I was like, oh, shucks, they gonna really get me. And they said, we found him. He turns around and looks at me. And he says, you're safe. We are the members of the Black Panther Party. We are the members Black Liberation Army. If anybody presses you, touches you, or anything, we will shut this place down. Found out why my mom was so cool. Right? Now, what's so crazy about that too is that in the whole in this whole prison industrial complex, in this space of deprivation, this system that they created for us, right? This matrix of sorts. I didn't know where I was in the context of who, what, where, why, how. And I say that because I'm getting on the gate, I'm on the count. When they say on the count, getting on the gate, you saying your number, you saying, but you got to get up when they say on the count. And you got to say your name, you got to say your number. I'm doing this for a while. And one of the elders says to me, do you know what your name means? I mean, your number means. And I said, no. He said, well, it's a 3-part number. In 1995, you aged out of the youth facility and they sent you up to the big house. A, B, or C, or R. A is the first half of the year. B is the second half of the year. R meant that you left and you came back. Then it's your position. This blew me away. My number's on my book of poetry. It's right there. (95A) 1113. I said, well, what does it mean? He said, well, your birthday's in February. You turned 21 in February. First half of the year, even though it was the second month. You were the 1,113th person to enter the door. Now I'm looking at his number. This brother been in jail for longer than I've been alive. Never came home. He might have had a 69 number. He might have had a 71 number. You know what I'm saying? And this is where they warehousing us. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that really was impactful was that here I was in a place where this is the absolute worst place to go if you're convicted of a crime like rape. The only crime that trumps rape is child molestation. And they always say that inmates have their own way of dealing with that kind of atrocity. But I was protected in the prison, right? And to me, it gave me so much hope in the future to know that there were still people that believed in our innocence. And as I looked around, of course, these was Black Panther Party members. We already know this. We know the story. They try to hide the story. They try to bury the story. These are members of the Black Liberation Army, right? And they try to bury all of this information, but inside of those places are history books, are encyclopedias, right? When I came home from prison, I came home to it was almost disrespectful the way I came home. Because I came home and it was little to no attention, which was a good thing in a way, right? I didn't want nobody looking for me, right? That was out, that could do some next level stuff. But 13 years after we were accused and convicted of the crime, they found out we didn't do it. My mother said when she testified in City Hall about this particular experience, she said that it was a whisper juxtaposed to the comparison of 1989. She said it was a whisper that she had wondered if the rats in New York City had heard. And so even to this day, there's folks that will be like, who's the Central Park Five? I've been places and people are like, you guys are part of a music group? I got a few bars. I mean, the sister right there got bars. Listen, but yeah.
I'm just curious. So another question that people wanted to know was, what did you think of the movie? What did you think about the depiction? How accurate it was? How was it to actually sit there and watch characters living your experience?
I thought that it was the thing that we needed, that was out, that we needed to push out into the world to give the proper context for everything that we had gone through. Most of the times I show up like this. As a matter of fact, I was like, it's a little hot outside. I was going to throw the double breasts on, because I feel like part of your expression, part of your footprint that you leave into the world is the cover that you want people to see. They always say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. The problem is that everybody judges the book by the cover. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, well, you know what? When Donald Trump sees me, somebody gonna leak the photos, somebody gonna talk about me, something gonna happen. But when Donald Trump sees me, quickly, I had an experience. But see, I had this experience. I came home from prison, and I tell you, God is good, as they say all the time, and all the time God is good. I walked into 125th Street, heard that there was a job opportunity for me. And I go to 125th Street, and I'm like, I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to go get a suit so they could at least see me before they see me, right? I want them to be like, oh, man, who's this brother stepping through? Like, you know, look like he just stepped off of a magazine cover. I wanted that reality to be in their mind before they said, okay, can I see your job application, right? And so I go into a store, and a guy sees me. New York is straight hustle. You know, the guy sees me, I'm in the front of the store, he sees me from the back of the store, and he's like, 44 long, right? I said, oh, shucks, okay, yeah. He said, come on, man, I got something for you. Wow. Takes me to the back, and he slides a jacket on. And I put the jacket on, and I'm like, okay, it's not bad. Who makes this?
Oh, God.
And I swear to God, I mean, it was like the Matrix. It was like I'm looking at the guy, and he's in slow motion. He's like poking out his chest, clearing his voice. And he says, that's a Donald Trump suit. We are in red state, right? And I threw that jacket off so fast, so the thought it was on fire. I mean, literally, my aversion was like, you don't know who, I mean, I wasn't like, you don't know who I am, but it was like, damn, you put me in a Trump suit? So I make sure that when folks see me, it's not a Trump suit. Those things don't fit right, you know, and that I have the right cover. And so with the film, one of the things that I loved about it was that these young people were able to give our future generation a seed of understanding where they need to be in this life. When I was in California in 2013, a young woman stepped up. We were about to show the film, the Central Park 5 documentary by Ken Burns. Young lady gets up and she says, I know we're going to show the film. I know we're going to have Q&A afterwards, but I got a question. She says, I'm 13. I'm a cadet. I want to be a cop. What advice can you give me? Now, I'm in a room full of folks that have had some experiences, right? So in my mind, I'm like, get out. Now, get out. That movie wasn't here yet, right? But I'm like, get out. Abort mission, you know what I'm saying? And something just popped into my head, which was crazy. It was like, tell her about what you've seen as it relates to the criminal justice system. And very quickly and succinctly, I said to her, you know, as I've traveled around the nation, on the side of cop cars, you have these words. On almost every single state I've been in, it says to serve and protect.
Yeah.
I said, that sounds honorable. I said, in New York City, they go a step further. It says to serve and protect, but then on the door, it says courtesy, professionalism, and respect.
Right, yeah.
Right? And I said, we all watched Eric Gardner get his life snuffed out.
Yep.
On TV, he was in Staten Island in New York State. He kept saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Young lady, I submit to you that they didn't give that young man the first letters off of those 3 ideals on the cop's door. They didn't give him CPR.
Mm-hmm.
I said, my advice to you is that you do your job.
Yeah.
I said, we all know that there's bad apples,
In every
but there's
profession.
only a small minute of those.
Yeah.
The reality is that if you do your job, you'll be one of the best cops out.
Yeah.
And we need that. We're not a lawless society.
No.
We're not a society without structure. But at the end of the day, what we see is the criminal system of injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing was that I realized that as I was talking to the future, I had to plant a seed of wisdom, of understanding, of truth, so that she would know, as she's thinking about this awesome career that she's going into, that she's volunteering to be the protection of society, that she's understanding that there are 2 Americas. One where you get representation and you're taxed, right? They say no taxation without representation. And then there's the other where it's the new Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
It's the morphing of what slavery turned into after they said we are abolishing slavery.
Yeah.
We'll have to give a shout out to Michelle Alexander.
Yes, indeed.
Is one of our alum of this program. So that brings us to the segue of thinking about young people, thinking about the movies. What do you want to happen? I mean, you're a captive audience. We all know this. But for a lot of people, this was the first time that they've ever witnessed something like that. What do you want moving forward for people to take from the movie, particularly young people and people who may not have been involved in this?
I'm going to my book because
Your book is published?
it is.
What's the name?
It's on my website. It's Words of a Man, My Right to Be.
Words of a man, a right to be.
It's on the website, yusefspeaks.com. I got other stuff on the
Yusefspeaks.com.
website, but
All
the
right.
book is being sold through the website. I got books in my bag in case anybody wants to.
Oh, yes. Yes. We want a copy.
So I'll tell you what, right? I wrote this book of poetry, and in the last paragraph I say most of the poetry written in this book was written while I was incarcerated between 1989 and 1997. There are pieces that were written after that, but the bulk of this material took shape while I was in prison. I've always called this body of work Words of a Man because the social injustice systems weren't treating me like a man. From the unbelievable accusation from the start, to the wild convictions of the media, to Donald Trump's full-page ad calling for the state to kill us, to the final judgment and imprisonment, the system wasn't treating me like I was a man. So because I knew I was a man, a human being, and a son of God, I had to remind myself, and these words were a big part of that. Here I was at the beginning of this whole bid, and I had to grow up very, very fast. But I wanted to share this work specifically because I wanted you to know that if you ever find yourself in so-called dark places, there's always a light somewhere in the darkness. And even if that light is inside you, you can illuminate your own darkness and shine your light on the world. Young people need to know without a shadow of a doubt that they were born on purpose and that they were born with a purpose. And I know this because it's the story of the birds and the bees, right? Cleaned up. Right, so this is go out, I can say this in a G-rated audience and in a I guess it's MA now, right? Sometimes they be like, right? When our mother and father got together, when our parents got together, we were one of over 400 million options, all racing to the edge. And we swam the fastest. We were not the other option, right? And if there was 2 that came, then we were twins, or that we were quadruplets, or triplets, or any of that stuff. But we know that the fact that we are here, we were born on purpose. And therefore, a lot of the questions I always get is, how can you help me find my purpose in life? Mm-hmm. I was born for this. And you know why I know I was born for this? I know that I was born for this because a man in prison who was an officer named Jerome Jones came up to me one day maybe 6 months into my bid. And he says, "Who are you?" And I'm like, in my mind, I'm totally confused. I'm like, this brother been under a rock? Like, what's going on here? But I didn't say that, so I just said, I'm Yusef Salaam, one of the guys that they accused of raping a Central Park job. But I didn't do it. And he says, I know that. He says, I've been watching you. You're not supposed to be here. Why are you here? Who are you? This question shook me to the core so much that I put it in my book of poetry. Who are you? Searching to find who has come. A beautiful soul, a powerful one. They want you to believe and accept the worst definition of yourself. Mm-hmm. They're telling you that you ain't worth nothing. Mm-hmm. When you worth everything.
That's right.
The rest of this whole future of this world rests in the hands of the young people that have been told that they are worth nothing. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the young people, because of that vision that they're accepting from the society, right? From the OGs that are supposed to be there to tell them what's right and wrong. And I'm not talking about the real OGs, right? Because the real OGs, they're going to cook a meal for you. They're going to hold the block down. They're going to make sure you're safe, right? They're not going to tell you, look, listen, young blood. The only way that you can really be a man is if you got like 5 women. This is what I was told when I was growing up. That was what manhood, that was the bar. That's how you can tell whether you made it or not. And so a lot of the brothers that I grew up with, even now, they're like, man, I got her number, blah, 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 you know what I'm saying? And it's crazy. Because then the fabric of the family isn't being nurtured properly because of everything that they have been teaching us through the education of the Negro and through the miseducation of the Negro, right? I was named on the 7th day. I come from a tradition where your parents are supposed to observe you. And before, in regular society, they have a baby shower before the baby comes out. Celebrating the baby, bringing gifts and all of that stuff, which is great. But I come from a tradition that same thing happens after the baby is already here. And the parents call the whole society to what's called an akika, a baby naming ceremony. 7 days later, they bring everybody together to tell them who this is, who has been brought here, right? Who has been placed here. Because we know in every scripture that a part of God has been blown into us, into our spirit. That's that light that we have to turn up to live without permission. We don't got to ask permission to live. We've been granted it. God said be, and therefore it is. And so here I was, finding out for the first time. And I knew what my name was, but I found out the meaning of my name in prison because of that question. I found out that Yusef means God will increase. I found out that Idris means the teacher. I found out that Fa'adil means good justice, and everybody knows that Salam is peace. But my name in a sentence is God will increase the teacher with justice and peace. I was born for this. I was put in the belly of the beast because it was going to be a cocoon so that I can emerge more powerful than when I went in. They didn't know who they was dealing with. You know what I'm saying? And I'm so happy and honored to be able to still have my faculties, to be able to speak truth to power, to be able to let people know, turn your light up. Live without permission. You want to make sure that when you leave this earth,
that's a tweet, y'all.
Right? When you leave this earth, you want to leave this earth, leaving your mark on the face of this earth. You don't want to leave this earth without a trace. You want to live full, and you want to die empty. What I mean by that is I want you to be able to not live on someday tomorrow I'm gonna. Don't do that. Because tomorrow might not come for you. When death comes for you, I want you to be climbing up another mountain, not sliding down the old one. You see what I'm saying? You got to be able to live full and die empty. And I'm saying things that I've
That's
heard
what my shirt says.
that were imbued in me. And all of the things like that, when I tell you, when I was in prison, I was trying to figure out how was I going to show back up in the world. I left with this indelible scar.
Yeah.
I'm coming back with an indelible scar.
Yeah.
Right? But my narrative, me being able to speak it, me being able to show it, the imagery, all of that stuff is important. And so, I mean, I am not unique. I'm not unique. I just did a little bit of work. And I know, see, God is so powerful that even the people who have done the most atrocious things, who have never been found out, who have went to bed and died in the comfort of cushions, God has taken names. God has taken names. God is the most just of all who have justice. Nobody escapes. And see, for me, I think that was the most impactful thing, because when they said we're gonna settle with y'all, we're gonna give y'all $41 million, right? The whole rest of the society heard every one of them got $41 million. We sued for $50 million each. Our total lawsuit would have been $250 million. They wrapped it up and said, we're not going to give you $50 million each. We're not even going to give you $50 million. We're going to give you a total of $41 million. And they wanted us to just be okay with that. These folks who they have pushed into poverty, these folks who they have created everything, all kind of negative stuff that has been attributed to us, we've been taught, right? They wanted us to accept that, and they said, you know what? They're going to be good, and not only they're going to be good, they're going to give all their money back. I mean, we're going to give a little bit of it back, because we got to make sure that we got the right imagery, so that when we're out there, you know that we didn't take our money and run. We didn't take our money and say, you know, we're going to sit on the beach and sip Mai Tais for the rest of our life. No, you're going to cause us to be in a position of financial immunity. We're going to take the bag and tumble it, right? We're going to make sure that we're going to make it do what it do. Because at the end of the day, even though they didn't give our families a dime, they didn't give our parents, our siblings, our loved ones who were there with us, whose lives had been totally ripped up and in shambles. They didn't give them a dime. And so we had to make sure that they were safe and whole, right? In the scripture that I read from, it says in Arabic, it says, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. So, after difficulty, there is relief. Most certainly, after difficulty, there is relief. Most people leave it right there. There's another verse after that. It says, إِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. I said this when they gave me the lawsuit, when we won. I said, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْ إِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا وَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَّا رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب. So when you are free from your immediate tasks, this brother knows it. Brother Marlon, you know it. When you are free from your immediate tasks, still labor hard. Still get out in the fight. Still make a difference. Still impact.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they want us to go out off into the sunset. Man, what happened to them brothers, man?
Right.
CP5, now known as the Exonerated 5, what happened to those brothers? You know, we took the lemons that y'all gave us, and we made lemonade.
Now y'all built the stand.
Not only did we make lemonade,
Y'all built the
we
lemonade
juggling them
stand.
lemons. We over here doing one of these joints. We looking like Neo in the Matrix, taking the bullets off the sky, looking at it, placing it back. And that scene, which was written by a black woman, right? This is heavy. That scene can only be understood by watching all of the series. At the last part, he says, "You mean I wasn't the only one?" They were trying to take him out. They were trying to shoot him. They were trying to make him into Malcolm X, to Martin Luther King, to Toussaint Louverture, to Denmark Vesey, to all of the others that we know about and don't know about. They were trying to make him into that. And then he looked at the bullet in the first scene, put it back, and said, "No, all the bullets fell. They couldn't kill him, even though they tried. And the reason why they couldn't kill him was because the message in that scene was that we are going to make sure that everybody is going to be a leader. Everybody is going to be able to get it. Everybody is going to be able to go back out through the information that we have and to add power and to add strength to their own circles." You know what I'm saying? That's what it's about.
So 2 last questions, and then we're going to turn it over to the others. Looking specifically at the criminal justice system, as you said, criminal injustice system, what do you want moving forward? What do you want to change? What do you hope that this movie is going to help others accomplish in this area?
So this film brings to light that there's so many facets to the criminal justice system. Yeah. You got the jurors, who, if any one of us, I'm not saying us, right? Because we've been touched, we've been plugged in, we understand. But I'm talking about us, meaning the others of us who don't know. That when we get that letter in the mail that says you have been called to serve on a jury, many of us say, "Man, I'm gonna try to get out of this." Right?
They'll never pick
Because
me.
they tell you all the time you're gonna be judged by a jury of your peers. And I swear I looked up, I swear when I heard that, I looked up and I said, "Where my man Bobo and Raheem at?" I don't know these folks. You see what I'm saying? We need people to understand that non-participation is participation. Even in the voting process.
Yes.
Non-participation is participation. We are all underneath this system. I don't care whether you want to say, "Man, I'm operating in a silo." You still got to come out. Even Kanye West, before he became, well, he's still our brother. He's still our brother because he left some. He left some. Well, yeah. Well, now he may have to stay over there.
Yeah. He's not invited to the
But I mean, because what he said, like when we go back into some of the depth of what he said, hip hop has always been one of the most powerful tools of our generation. Through the artists, they have recognized that they are the griot. They are the jelly from Africa to tell the story of a people.
Yeah.
And so therefore there was always music in the message.
Yeah.
And there was always a message
In the music. Yeah.
Even though they've hijacked it, right? That stuff is still there. I heard it last night.
Hey.
That sister right, I heard it last night.
Hey.
Music wasn't in the background, but damn, I said she powerful right there. You know what I'm saying? And we gonna win. I'm gonna just say it like that. We gonna win.
So, where are you? So, what are you working on now? What's your next steps? What can we support? And what can all of us in this room do to support what you're doing and the larger purpose of all of this?
So, I officially started my business in 2015, my speaking business. But in addition to that, I also wanted to make sure that I had memorabilia from the case that I created, because I'm a graphic designer. And so like this ring that I have right here, I made this ring. I actually drew this up, gave it to the jeweler, and I said, "I need you to cast it." This necklace that I wear a lot of times, folks see me with this on. Yeah, I got it on. This is like Iron Man, you know what I'm saying? But this necklace, I gotta give back to the jeweler. Because I said, listen, we've been rebranded. The Exonerated 5. At the bottom it says Central Park 5. So I gotta just let them know I need that part taken off. You know. because it all matters. But I have that, but my most impactful thing is the motivational speaker. So I tell people all the time, like, invite us out. Bring us to share our story, because they don't want stories like this to be heard. This is 30 years later. 30 years later, and we still here. 30 years later, and we shining. 30 years later, and we are participating. We're not saying, man, we famous now, we good. You know what I'm saying? They want to put that on us. But at the end of the day, we know where it's at. We know that our platform is supposed to be used to make sure that we magnify the voice of the voiceless.
Yeah.
And that's where it's at. You know?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before, is a lot of people saying that don't look at it as just your case. It's like this gentleman
No, my
here
case
said,
is
this is happening right now as we speak.
Right, my case represents a microcosm of the macrocosm of cases just like it, which is one of the main reasons why.
Another tweet.
It's one of the main reasons why we said, with regards to the Central Park jogger case, we can't look at this egregious injustice and say this was the first time and the only time. Every case that the people who were involved with, who had direct involvement in our case, every case afterwards most certainly should be reinvestigated.
Yes.
Because they built their careers off of that. And just like you said, we can't forget that with the Central Park jogger case, this was a practice that they had perfected. Right. They made people believe, I don't know, man, they might have did that. Right? But see, they didn't realize that they had beaten us. They didn't realize that we had been interrogated for over 24 hours. They didn't realize that. Like Raymond Santana and Kevin Richardson were picked up that night. Me and Corey got picked up the next night. Right? They have been interrogating them for over 24 hours. And then they say smile for the camera.
Right.
And that image is what gets put out over the airwaves. And you're looking at this image and saying, man, that person looked crazy.
Yeah.
Of course. This is all scripted. They know how to, this is their system. They know exactly how they're going to present, how they're going to show, to make sure that the 13th Amendment stays in place.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
They morphed it. They morphed the abolishment of slavery. They morphed it. They said, nah, man, we can't just give up that financial component that easy. Mm-hmm. And so they flipped it into the prison industrial complex. And I say that because, like, when I came home and I started working for healthcare, I rose up the ladder of success, as you saw in the film. I taught myself computers. I taught myself what I needed to know in order to be the best at what it was that I was doing. Because I didn't want them ever to be like, well, I don't know about this, but let me question it. No, I knew what it was. I could take my computer, I could take this phone right now, drop it on the floor, throw it across the room, pick it up, all the parts, and by the time you saw me tomorrow, this phone will be back, working, and look like it never had been smacked. Because I know how to do that, right? The takeaways from this film is that every single part matters. Whether you are on the jury, whether you are the forensic scientist, whether you are the cop, whether you are the detective, whether you are the mother, whether you are the father, whether you are the neighbor, whether you are any part, it all matters. It all matters. And we got to come together. Because see, what you see, and this is beautiful, what you see is the ripple effect around the globe of all of the love and the outpouring of we want you, we embrace you, we need you, we love you. The only reason why I know that is because if somebody's writing me in Portuguese, some of this stuff don't got the Google Translate button. If you're on your phone, you can't copy the text. So if you don't got a computer, you don't know what they're saying. All you know is that it's love because you see hearts at the end. You see strong at the end. You see fists at the end. You see what I'm saying? So you know that this is an outpouring of love. They're telling us we are necessary. And so we're stepping up to the plate, knowing and understanding that it's about planting those seeds so that all of the future generations know that just like Nipsey Hussle, I think, is perhaps one of the most powerful examples of a person doing the work behind the scenes, planting seeds, and he would never be able to sit under the shade of those trees. That's what we have to be about.
Hey, does anyone mind asking some people to kind of keep it down a little bit? Somebody could run over there.
Can you ask them to like keep it down
But
over there?
we're gonna go on to the audience, but you mentioned Corey, and obviously you all are so connected in the story. What is your relationship with Corey? How has that transitioned over?
Man, Corey says funny because it's like part of the film shows that we left him. That's not what happened. The thing that people didn't understand was that I was being broken down just like everybody else was. By the time my mom got there, I'm hiding behind my mother as she's leading me out as the superwoman. Right? She's leading me out. And I'm hiding behind her. And Corey is behind the wall. Now the truth of the matter is that I didn't leave prison. I mean, I didn't leave the precinct. Even though it looked like I came, like in the film, I came back with new clothes on and all of that. Like, when you look at the old photos, that same trench coat that I had on, that I wore, like, only the folks that's from my generation and before understand what I'm talking about. Like, I had the triple fat goose with the fur on the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, I came home and I wanted to put it on, and it still fit. My sister was like, nah, times have changed, man. Don't wear that. Don't put that. Because like that coat made you look like the Shaft, man. It was the only coat that the tall people gave you that kind of, that ambiance,
posture,
that grace.
Yeah.
You know, man, we got a lot of work to do. But in the context of where we are in history, we just began.
Yeah.
And so I want folks to know that even though this has been a 30-year process, right? When I first moved to Georgia, I remember picking up a newspaper, the AJC, and they had an article, and it said, 50 years after the Kerner Report. And I said, what's the Kerner Report? And so I started diving in and saying, well, this is interesting, right? They put it on MLK birthday and 50 years after the Kerner Report. I'm looking at this stuff and I said, oh, that's what this is? This is the vision of justice. This thing where they have the letter of the law and the color of law. Two clearly divided Americas where one is protected and the other is not. That you could be shot down in front of your family. You know what I'm saying? Like all of this stuff is going on, and then they quickly, like our dear friend and sister Angela Davis said, we as a people have historical amnesia. But that's not because we forget. We have historical amnesia because of the way that we've been socialized, the way that we've been taught. So like I tell my children, all of them got well, they don't all got a phone, but they all got some kind of device that they can use. And I'm telling them, look, half the time at least, do some research on it. Figure out what you want to be about. And so my eldest daughter that just graduated high school, she's on her phone and now she's producing films about makeup and hair and all of this other stuff, right? My other daughter is, my 10-year-old, she's over there figuring out how to create videos. And so now she's like, oh, I'm going to put my stuff out into the world. You know, all of these things can be either the smartphone or the idiot phone.
Yep.
It's only smart if we use it.
That's right.
For what we need to use it for.
All right. I know we're going to have a lot of folks, but before, can we just have Norris talk and tell him what he was saying?
Yes, Nora, please.
Thank you. Sorry.
I didn't even see it. I didn't see him back.
I had left before you came. Hi, Salaam alaikum.
We referenced you while you were gone.
Before you showed up, I referenced the part that you just spoke about your mom. and how
Can you try to speak up a
and
little
how
louder?
your mom really became kind of like the difference maker. You know, I myself, Calvin was staying here, but I did almost 30 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. And so that, to watch this thing, I binge watched it. And it's like, I didn't realize it was going to be that long, but I binge watched it. Watched the interview with Oprah and all. And I was just broke up. I was literally broke up in tears. I was kind of like 19 when I went in. But realizing what they had done to you. And, you know, when you tell people these stories, you know, people, I remember being in front of our legislature talking about compensation. And these folks' attitude was, oh, y'all probably didn't do that, you probably done something else. And so this is the mindset. But the biggest thing that you kept saying more than anything else is that, you know, and I was telling young guys, prison for me is a bad experience with good results. But that's that every difficulty there's relief.
Yes.
You know, that's what it is. And so even when you were saying about your name, and for some folks who don't know the English version of Yusef, the English version of Yusef is Joseph.
It's Joseph, yeah.
And so that's the story in the Bible about the innocent guys. So we're talking about you find purpose. And so that's what we do, man. We got to find purpose. Everybody's here for a reason. A lot of folks, especially some of the fellows, would always say, I don't know why you're here. You're here because you're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be here. This is why we're here. Everybody has a purpose of why we're here. And it's like what we do with it. You know, This is what we do. It's like, you know, this is our time. It's our time to find out what our purpose is. And our purpose is to tell these stories, to uplift these stories about when we see it. It's like you say again, oh, that just didn't start with it. They perfected this method. You know, we had a prosecutor in Louisiana, stayed in office for 30 years. Wow. 30 years. And when I was in prison, I started watching guys who I played music with in high school come to prison. And I was like, these were kids whose mama wouldn't let them off the porch. Wow. And I couldn't put my finger on what had happened. And then all of a sudden, started calling this term about mass incarceration, this, that, and another, the war on drugs, and then I started to see. And then even in the prison I was in, the prison was painted the very same color of the housing project that I came out of. And so we were kind of like just mentally just comfortable in the sense this is a comfortable environment. We know what it looks like. And so this goes deeper, man, than just us, this little fireside chat. But bro, I appreciate you taking time out of your life.
And what did you say about his mom?
Oh, your mom is my hero, man. Your mom is my hero.
I need 2 books. No, 2
And I'm
books.
gonna tell you, I'm so happy that my mom is still here. Like Antoine just lost his mom. And my mother almost went out. My mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer about 2 or 3 years ago. And it's wild because when you think about health and stuff like that, like we can't choose how we gonna leave.
Nope.
My grandmother used to always say to me, because I would write letters to her and I would say, may God grant you a long life. And she said, you should say rather, may God grant you life in your years. Because some of us, we may have a long life and we may be, you know, we might be messed up. But if we have life, if we still vibrant, if we still got our mind, regardless of where we are in our life, even when we're leaving, if we're still able to speak and still able to conduct ourselves, that life that, you know what I'm saying, that we could have just been messed up with is important. And so my mother, she kind of, she reverted us back to how she raised us. And she raised us off of books like Back to Eden. Everything that she gave us to eat, my mother made it. Whenever we went to the butcher, she said, no, I don't want ground beef. I want you to take that beef right there and grind it up for me. So that she knew what it was. And I didn't understand. Like she would tell me all the time, I was raised in the Jim Crow South. I had no idea what she meant by that until I found out by the system. But like the spike wheels of justice mowing us down. Yeah.
We'll take 2 questions and we should be wrapping up.
Oh, these books, somebody asked how much the
2.
books.
I
The
need
books
2
are,
copies.
the books are 15. 15 with cash. If it's on the card, it adds a little bit of tax and all of that stuff. But if I don't have enough, I'm looking around the room and I'm like, damn, I may not have enough books to give everybody.
True.
But if I don't have enough books, you can most certainly get it on the website. and leave a message on the website for me to sign it and to address it to you. Okay?
What's the website again?
www.yusefspeaks.com. yusefspeaks.com.
All right, thank you.
I thought there was a question first. I thought there was a question back here.
Oh, sorry.
Question back here.
No, I'm just saying, what are you feeling?
I didn't. And I think that that's an important question because many of us emerge.
She said, did anyone
Right, did anybody receive
seek
mental health? Did we seek it? Was it given to us? Right. No, see what they do is, and this is the whole understanding of the revolving door. Right? I went to jail and I got a college degree. But I never say that to impress anybody, but rather to impress upon them that even if you're a free person, if I could be in there and still make myself do something, imagine what you can do free. Right? This is before they took out the criminal. They took out.
1994 crime bill. They took
Right. They took all of that stuff out. Slowly, some of the stuff is coming back. But when I tell you, those individuals, see, this is the trick. Malcolm X was probably one of the most intelligent of us that we always reference. And Dr. Martin Luther King is one of the most intelligent of us that we always reference. And here you have two people on opposite sides of the fence.
Yep.
One who was graduating from college, I believe, in his teens. Imagine that. And Malcolm X didn't even have a college education,
Right.
but taught himself through the reading of the dictionary and other things. That it's about lifelong education. It doesn't have to be in a formal place, but you have every opportunity for yourself to make sure that you stay on top of it.
Yeah.
And so when I came home, just like in the film, they forced us to go to sex therapy. As a condition of your parole, we need you to be in this. And I got kicked out of every sex therapy session that they put me in. Like, so in the film, you see Kevin coming in, and I see, oh man, we hadn't seen each other forever. They literally disappeared us in the system, right? And when I see him, I embraced him, and I said, wow, man, good to see you, man. He asked me about my life, and I asked him about his life. And then the name of the woman who was in charge of the sex therapy is Dr. Scattergard. I'd never forget Dr. Scattergard, because that woman gave her a pretty picture. She was as evil as the DA and the assistant district attorney in our case. And so when I stood up, I was standing up to talk truth to power, to tell her that we are not just here because we decided to be here. You're forcing us to be here, but we don't talk about the case. We're not going to accept the case. As a matter of fact, one of the most magical components of our story is this young man who changed his name from Corey, which was spelled Khaery, to Corey, Korey, King Wise. This is what he changed his name to. If you ever get an opportunity to speak to him, he says things like, this is life after death.
Yeah.
That young man died in prison.
Yep.
I'm fighting for folks like him who didn't have someone like me to fight them. You see what I'm saying? And our brotherhood switched from a brotherhood to a sacred brotherhood. Because one of the best things about this film was that we didn't know each other's story. We found out, just like everybody else found out when they see us. We didn't know that Raymond was going through that at home. That his stepmom was calling him a rapist. He's scared to death. He don't even want to be at home with her alone. She might say he touched her. You see what I'm saying? This is the reality that he was placed upon. You know? And a lot of other folks were going through similar types of things.
Were you part of the documentary?
Yes, we were. Yeah. The documentary, we played a great part in the Central Park 5 documentary that's on PBS. That's also, if folks have an Amazon account, they can see it for free. Right? I think it used to be on Netflix, but that contract ended. And so it switched over to Amazon Prime.
Prime,
It's on Amazon
okay.
Prime. You can also order it on iTunes.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's available. They got DVD versions of it and all of that.
That's the one that I would think to watch. I haven't been able to bring myself to watch this one just because so many folks are saying how triggering it is, and I'm not in a place where I want to open it again. I reached out to Raymond and I told him, like, I love you and I support you, but
And we appreciate that.
I just can't bring myself.
The truth about what happened to us is that I want folks to look at us and understand we survived. A lot of people are just finding out about the Central Park jogging case through this film. But this is 30 years later, where we had to deal with all of this that went on. And we were able to get the recognition of a superpower like Ava DuVernay, who once had a t-shirt on that I was like, man, that's so dope. And the t-shirt said, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. And so we see all of this tremendous work that she's doing and that she will do, right? And for her to say, I want to do this, was beyond our wildest imagination. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have to wrap up because we